That's right. Oh my.
You're a rowdy group today. We've met in closed session. We have a quorum. Let's stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Welcome to tonight's meeting. We're going to start with an approval of the minutes for the October 16th business meeting, November 6th special workshop meeting, and November 6th closed meeting.
I move that we accept the minutes as read.
Thank you, Terry.
Second.
Thank you, Don.
Carrie Pavasich.
Aye.
Don Renner.
Aye.
Mike Davenport.
Aye.
Cheryl Fuller.
Aye.
Dan Nicholas.
Aye.
Rick Pavanato.
I'm going to abstain. I missed one of the meetings.
And Nancy Kupka.
I'm also going to abstain because I missed one of the meetings, but the motion still carries. We're moving on to the reception of visitors. This meeting agenda includes 2 opportunities for comments from the audience. This first reception of visitors is intended for members to address the board about any agenda item on which the board will vote. Is there anybody who wishes to address the board? Hearing none, we'll move on to recommendations and reports of the superintendent.
Before we start the actual reports, I wanted to do some recognition of our Board of Education. For the first time ever, our board has received the Illinois Association of School Boards School Board Governance Recognition. We did an announcement about this at a prior board meeting, but now there's hardware to go with it. So I'm going to present this to Board President Kupka.
Thank you.
Congratulations, Board. The board also, or the Illinois Association of School Boards has also presented each board member with a pin to recognize this accomplishment. So I'm going to go around and pass out that hardware.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. That's very nice. Thanks. I think we have an extra one.
Can I say something? More to say.
I have one more.
Okay.
And also an individual award, Master School Board Member Award, is awarded to Mike Davenport.
Hey. Congratulations, Mike.
No, I will not be calling you master.
Well, we can talk.
He's always been master of his own universe.
There's maybe something we can work out.
You know, I would just like to say, I probably said this last time too, but I would just like to say I'm very, very proud of us. Because if you've been on this board longer or as long as I have, you know that our board has come a long way. And I think that every member of the board really deserves, frankly, a pat on the back. It's a wonderful group of colleagues, and I'm very proud to be part of this board, and I'm very proud of how hard people have worked. And there's special people here, including Terry Pavasich, who really have gone above and beyond. So thank you all. Not to embarrass you, but to embarrass you.
But to embarrass you. And then finally, it is school board recognition time of the year. I believe it was last Wednesday. But the community to show their thanks for all the work you have done. We have a small token of thanks in the shape of cake, which is the best kind of thanks you can get.
Yes.
So thank you all for all the work that you do.
Thank you.
I just want to say thanks to everybody. I know that last week you sent out an email or an announcement and got probably 30 or 40 different emails back from individuals. So for everybody who sent emails, thank you very much.
That was really appreciated.
It was really nice.
It was wonderful.
Thank you.
Put a smile on your face sometimes when you come home at night and you got.
And that included Mr. Schwartz, where I saw him.
Yeah, even he thanked us.
All right.
And that is going to be hung up in the hallway?
Yeah, we will find a place of prominence for it.
Yeah. In the men's room?
Well, I think the challenge is on now to keep
Yes,
this up.
they have
oh, absolutely.
2017, it's an award you can get every 2 years. So 27 and 2018 is on here. You come back in 20 to get the 19 and 20 ones. So,
All right,
so lots of work left to do.
yes.
And speaking of work,
Speaking of work.
what about this master facility plan community engagement update?
Sure. If we could pull up that slide. So Jill will help me on this. There's Jill. Hi, Jill. You want to? You can come sit next to Rick. He's giving pats on the back tonight. All right. So as we've been discussing for many months, about a year ago, the board asked the administration, once it had decided, or we had all come to an agreement of what the district's needs were around our facilities, was to go out to the community and determine, does the community see an equal need for these ideas? And our challenge as administration was to inform the community, to make sure we had an informed population, and then use multiple ways of surveying them to get their opinions. We had one set of polls. It's a scientific phone poll that was done of the community. We have not made mention of that in public because they say it would have lowered the scientific reliability of announcing that we were going to do that phone poll. So this is the first time we're mentioning this in public. There is also every household in the community received a informational flyer and a paper survey that they could respond free of postage back to us, which the last of those are still coming in. So that data is not available yet, but we are over 4,000 surveys returned at this point.
That's great.
Our goal was somewhere between 8 and, 15%, somewhere? 17%. So we're going to end up right around 10%. We sent out 44,000 surveys. So we're going to end up somewhere close to 10% back, which is right in the range that we were looking for those mailed surveys. Next board meeting on December 4th, we will have the community engagement experts here to give a full presentation. Bring some coffee, because you're going to be here for a while, to go into full detail around all of these survey results for both the phone poll and the mailed survey. But in the meantime, we have some preliminary data that we'd like to share. So especially the phone poll, because that's done. And that is, you can see a statistically valid survey. It's a scientific survey. We have a plus or minus of about 5%, exactly 5.66% on this. We had 300 likely voters called. It's a random stratified sample, and you're going to hear the expert talk about this at the next board meeting, but it means the questions come in a random order, different things are presented in different ways, or in different sets, so that it's not as invalid as a mailed survey where everybody gets the questions in the same order, okay? And then we tested 2 plans, which is one of the things that the board has asked about over the last year, which would be meeting all of our needs at the $136.6 million option, or an 81.6 smaller option, and what that would look like. You can see the results up there, and we give you the yes and no numbers, which are very similar in the scientific phone poll between the 2 different plans. They're almost exactly the same. What we have been told is that anything over 30% is a strong number. So you can look at this in 2 ways. Obviously, in both plans, the 61% is far above the 30%, which makes it a strong yes, but it makes a stronger yes in the fact that the no's are under 30%. They're right below that number. So it's not as strong of intensity. The other thing that you see is the definitely yeses and definitely no's. The statisticians are looking for that above 30%. which you see in the definitely yes is above 30, and the definitely no falls well below the 30. The other thing that they have informed us is the larger the spread between the definite yeses and definite nos tells you how strongly the community is one way or another. So if those numbers were reversed, like 20% definitely yes, 32% definitely no, the community would strongly not be in support of doing something. Just as you see them now, they are strongly in support of doing something. And the strength across both those plans is pretty equal.
Can you remind me, it's a 5-point scale? The question?
Oh, the yeses and no.
Is it 5 or 7? Or?
I don't know, they'll present it on the
Okay.
4th.
Okay.
So any questions on that before I just keep rolling?
I think it was 5, so you're saying definitely yes, probably yes.
Most definitely.
Definitely.
Probably yes, probably
it's
yes,
fine.
nothing,
Yeah.
no opinion.
Survey from the House was fine.
Yeah, I think they mirrored each other. Other questions on that data, and then I'll get to the 2 little ancillary things at the bottom that are nice. The last 2 items at the bottom are that we asked remember, the goal of this is also community engagement. It's not just the master facility plan, right? We want to use this also as a tool to figure out how we better reach out to our community, what our community thinks of District 99. A key indicator that comes back we like to see is this letter grade of the district, and 76% of the community gives District 99 an A or a B grade. We have been told that that is very strong, that is unusual to have something that strong as an A or B in those surveys. Next week they'll get into the actual Gallup data they compare that to and everything else. And then looking at how we manage taxpayer money, you can see that 73% of the community are confident in the way that we spend spend taxpayer money. So they must be watching Mark's presentations. So the initial feedback is strong about do something around master facilities for the community. When we get all of this data back on the 4th, I will bring to you the direction that I am leaning towards my recommendation. We meet next with the Citizens Task Force. The final meeting with them is on November 30th. I will be asking for their feedback as to what their recommendation is at that time. This is also the opportunity for the board to provide us any other information you would like us to ask that informed group of citizens at that next meeting, besides where are they recommending that the board goes based on the data that they've received. So if there's anything else you'd like for me to ask that team, you can bring it up now, or you can send me in advance of the 30th, and I will work that into that meeting with them. And so any suggestions or any questions I can take at this time. Otherwise, stay tuned for lots of data on December 4th.
And we'll have coffee.
And we'll have coffee, yes.
Yes.
Okay, hearing none. Essa?
Essa, I'm going to turn this over to Gina, who's going to continue our conversation around Essa and the data that impacts where we may go with this in the future.
So as we continue our conversations about ESSA, tonight we're going to look at SAT. We'll talk about it not just in terms of ESSA, but since
Mark's stealing cake over here.
wow, I didn't even say anything yet.
I apologize.
So we'll talk about SAT not just in terms of ESSA, but a little bit beyond that, just because the class of 2018 is the first class to take the SAT, where all students had to take the SAT. And then we'll continue, as we have been in the next few months, looking at ACT and AP math. You know, last meeting we looked at English, we'll look at attendance, programs of studies, extra and co-curriculars, and then as the rulemaking occurs, whatever comes out of that, we'll continue looking at that. So we're going to look tonight at SAT, and you probably recall this chart from actually the first presentation we did in the beginning of October, I believe it was, where we talked about what is going to be looked at. And you can see in 2018-19, 10% is going to be allocated of that 75% academic. 10% of that is for ELA, English Language Arts, and then 10% for math. Now, that's, of course, next year, and I'm reporting data from the students who took it last year, but at least they give us a basis of where we're at in terms of our students. So as we look at the class of 2018, again, the first class to take the SAT, basically our students scored substantially higher than the average in the state. As you can see, in both evidence-based reading and writing, which is worth 800 points, and in math, which is worth 800, composite, obviously, worth 1,600 points. Our average fell substantially above the state of Illinois, but I also want to point out for evidence-based reading and writing, the College Board has benchmarks. So they set benchmarks, and their benchmark for what we would call college ready, meaning that a student who reaches the benchmark or higher, scores greater than, has a 75% chance of earning a C or better in the respective credit-bearing college course. So, 480 for evidence-based reading and writing, a student who scores above 480 should earn in like an English comp freshman year, first semester course, 75% chance of earning a C or better. In math, that score is 530. So I share that with you, and I want to put it up there and you know, kind of cloud all that, but I share that with you just to show you not only are we doing better than the average in the state, but according to College Board standards on the SAT, we are doing quite well. I also do want to point out that this SAT that our students took last year is the new one. It had been on the national test dates a few months before that. Nonetheless, it is aligned to the Common Core. It is not the old SAT that you may have taken when you were in school. So it's a new Common Core aligned SAT. In Illinois, they set performance levels.
Can I ask a quick question before you move on? So you mentioned that, if you go back a slide, we show that we performed better in District 99 than the state of Illinois. You mentioned we performed higher than the class board, the College Board numbers with the SAT scores. How does that difference compare to where we were when it was ACT?
It's really not a fair comparison because in Illinois, we had benchmarks were like the percent of meeting versus like the levels. So for this one, what the College Board does is they declare a green, a yellow, and a red, and the green is at or above benchmark. So they have 3 categories. SAT doesn't quite line up. However, we were still above the averages for the state of Illinois and the nation. So if you think about it that way, it's similar, but it doesn't line up exactly.
Okay, I was just trying to compare of how District 99 did on the ACT compared to the rest of Illinois and versus the SAT and the rest of Illinois. So,
and that's a really good point too, because the class of 2017, now not the class of 2018, which is what I'm talking about here, we still had a significant number of students, even in the class of 2018, take the ACT, so 2017 and 18, and our scores are still remaining high.
okay.
So we're not seeing a decrease in scores, but we're also not seeing a huge elevation in scores, which one might expect if you consider that now students don't have to take the ACT, they have to take the SAT.
Yeah, they're going to prep for one.
Right, and you would think that, okay, so those students that are perhaps the higher level student might take the ACT, but we're not seeing much of a fluctuation in our scores from when all students took it, which I think is a very positive indicator of our students.
Thank you.
So, Illinois has allocated 4 performance levels. This is required by federal law. We are required to have performance levels that tie to the standards. So the new Illinois Learning Standards, which are essentially the Common Core standards. You probably remember Dr. Thiele speaking about how we had a couple of teachers who were on a committee working at the state level. Those 2 English reading teachers from South High were part of the group that looked at the standards, looked at the test questions, and basically were an advisory board to the state. And here is the threshold of what the state came up with in terms of those 4 levels. So essentially, and you can see The difference between level 2 and level 3, for example, in evidence-based reading and writing is about 100 points with each, and then you see obviously a larger group with partially meets and then exceeds. So these are the 4 levels. Students will fall into one of those levels. They look at them independently as evidence-based reading and writing and independently at math. These levels are not assigned to students. In other words, it's not like students are getting a report that says, you're level 2 or you're level 3. Okay, but this is just for internal when they're looking at how many of District 99 students are falling in each level. So, in an effort to kind of display that for you, in evidence-based reading and writing, so again, we're talking about the SAT, we're talking about just one class of students. You'll see that the majority of our students are falling in the meets and exceeds category. We have about 59% from North total, about 51% from South, and our district average at about 55%. The approaching is simply what it means. It does not mean that the students did not meet standards. It just means that they're approaching the level of meeting the standards. And then for partially meeting, we have roughly 10% at North, 16 at South, and 13 district-wide.
So level 1 started at like 200. Oh, thank you.
Yeah, let me go back.
So
200 to 420.
do we know anybody, would we be informed if we had people who did not score even 200?
You mean students that fall in that range?
No, that fall below that range.
That's the lowest.
That's where it
That's
So they have
what
to
you get.
score 220.
They're going to get 200.
If they show up, they get 220.
If they answer a question,
They get 200.
essentially.
Okay,
Yeah,
thank you.
Yeah. And we know which, I mean, obviously, we know the scores that students received.
Yeah.
So that's reading and writing. When we look at math, a little bit different with a greater percentage of students falling in the levels 3 and 4. We're looking at about 65% of North students, 54% of South, and 59% district-wide. And again, our group that partially meets, which is that area that is of concern, right? The partially meets that level 1, is fairly similar actually for math as it is for evidence-based reading and writing. 10% at North, 14 at South, and 12 district-wide. A little bit lower, but fairly comparable. But higher for the number of students that meet and exceed. And do want to note that these students have gone through the Common Core pathway, the integrated math pathway.
Oh, all the way through. Okay.
So, linking this back to ESSA, we looked at a couple of things the last few months, or last few meetings, I should say. We looked at the distinguished scholars, and we looked at those students that have a GPA of 3.75 to 4.0, and we looked at the ACT. Now we'll factor in the SAT. Again, the total of the SAT, the composite, the highest you can get is 1,600. The state has set the benchmark at 1,400. So, in looking at that, this chart shows those students, again, it's just one class. We only have one class of students who've taken the SAT so far. We have had some students in the past, but it's a very small group and it's really not statistically comparable. Now, this is those students who fall with a GPA in 3.75 to 4.0 and have either the composite score or the ACT score. So we're looking at about 62% at North, 66 at South, and 63. And a lot of them cross over, so they have both. There were only about 6 students district-wide that met the score due to SAT and didn't meet because of ACT. But like I said a few minutes ago, a lot of our students are taking both.
Gina,
We're taking them on.
you're telling me then that 62% of the North High students scored a 30 or better on the ACT?
No.
No, of the-
62% of the students in the class of 2018 that have a GPA that falls between 3.75 and 4.0.
So this is a small group of the
It
small
was.
group.
I have to go back to a couple presentations ago, but it was like 8-10% of the
So
students. It
one or
was.
two individuals could really skew the
Yep.
percentages.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
But it was interesting to me that we didn't see a lot of students who met the SAT but hadn't met the ACT. So that was sort of interesting. Only about 6 more students were able to get into that group because of the SAT. Which means, I guess in one sense, could mean that they're doing well on both of those tests. Not surprising. So then, looking at college and career ready, remember that's that other GPA range of 2.8 to 4.0. And in looking at that range, you may recall this chart. We've looked at it a couple of times. So we're going to look here at those students who fall in that range but have the minimum ACT subject scores in English of 18 and reading 22, and then the minimum SAT subject score on the evidence-based reading and writing. Remember, 480 was that benchmark. So students that are within that college and career ready group but have those scores. So we looked at the students in that range. Again, this is the percent of those students that have a 2.8 to 4.0. What percent at North, what percent at South met either or both of the criteria?
So Gina, can you flip back to the other one just real quick? I just want to impress on everybody. They need that 2.8 to, what was it, 4.0, and one of the ELA lists and one of the math. So the group that Gina's showing that doesn't meet through the ACT and SAT measure might meet through one of those other measures up above. So I want to make it clear that we might be at 100% pretty easily, because you're going to see now, if you flip back, Gina, that you're a very small amount that are still not meeting, that we may be down to less than 1% of our students that are not meeting for college and career ready standards already, before even diving into efforts we will make with ESSA going forward.
And ultimately, that's where we'll look at. We're looking in bits and pieces now, but in the end, it will be, okay, based on X number of years. Now, it's a little bit smaller for SAT, of course, because we just have the 1 year, right? But based upon this, this is how many would meet.
Yeah, and that 2.5 is what, less than 10 students, isn't it?
The 2.5?
That are in district that are not meeting. It's more than 10, but.
Is it?
Right, yeah. I'd have to look back at the exact percent, but it is a smaller number than, it's only like 10%, 8 or 10% that are meeting that distinguished.
Right.
But remember, the College Career Ready includes those students, because those students are 3.75 to 4.0.
Okay. All right.
So it's taking all the way from 2.8 all the way. And as we said, and I know this is a little bit confusing, it was to me in the beginning, Hank and I had a lot of conversations about this, is that if you are a distinguished scholar, you're automatically college and career ready. So these students that are falling in 2.8 to 4.0 includes those students that had met in the slides I've already shown.
Oh,
Yeah,
and
that
so
kind of-
this just keeps accumulating.
Correct.
All of the
Yeah.
students.
So you just
Rather
keep-
than
Which is-
each group has its own percentages.
Right.
Correct.
Okay,
Right.
I'm sorry.
No, it's a lot. As I page through all of this and loads of data, it's a lot to look at and try and break it down to simple statements.
Yeah. This is really great, and I think a credit to our administrator, all of our staff, all of our teachers, our parents, our students. It's great. It would be helpful if we knew what the ends were, though, because I think that means a lot more to people than saying 3.3% is that 10 students or 110 students or 210 students.
Well, ultimately, what it'll matter to us administratively and with our teachers is not the numbers, but the names.
Absolutely.
Right, that's
But yeah, but
where
we
it'll
don't-
make a
we
difference.
don't-
You won't get that, but I'm just saying.
It's hard for us to put it in.
But this gives us data where we can get down to that, right? Where you can say, here's the students that aren't trending in the direction, like if you have a 2.8 to 4.0 GPA, you should be college and career ready. All of our data says that you should be. All the research through education says you should be. So if you aren't, then you're an outlier, right? We need to figure out what's going on with, so it gives us more opportunities. And that may already be a student that we're working with, right?
Yeah.
But it gives us another way to make sure that nobody's slipping through any cracks.
But all I'm asking at this point is, maybe it would be
Yep.
helpful if we could just put the N in parentheses so people can,
Sure.
can figure out.
So
what
that
they
I'm
mean.
not trying to figure out that
Well,
there's.
yeah, because
10
it's a straight.
Well, you
because
won't be able to-
It's a subset and a subset
You
and a
know.
Right.
subset, so it's hard
Yeah,
to. You
yeah.
can't.
And I have all of that. I mean, just to give you an example.
you do.
It's just one example.
Right.
Which I think is a really good example. So those students that are falling in that 2.8 to 4.0, so those students we already have that scored greater than the evidence-based reading and writing that they needed to, at North High was 373 students.
Okay.
Those that did not meet that evidence-based reading and writing score was 28. So that's just an example of how those numbers look. So same criteria, South would be 311 and then 46.
But that's 311 out of about 11, about 1,000.
Out of 580 something,
Okay.
I believe it's South.
That's my point, is it would just be helpful to
Yeah.
know what the numerator and denominators are.
We have a lot of data.
Sure.
I know.
I am incorrect. It's not 589, it's 587.
Oh, well.
Get your facts
okay.
straight. would you?
Oh,
Sorry,
yeah.
I made a mistake.
Oh, God.
Where's that master certificate? We're just gonna take that.
That's right. Somehow I've just stepped out of bounds. I know it.
Okay, so I can share some more data.
Yeah, that would
And
just be
numbers
helpful.
if you'd like.
I don't think you have to go back and do it, but just going forward, I think it would be helpful for us to keep it in perspective of what it means for the student groups. Thank you.
And we have all that. It's easy to,
Yeah, we have to have it because you can
List,
calculate
yeah.
the percentages.
Still,
to have.
this is great news. It really
Oh,
is.
absolutely, absolutely. It just says that we've got great students and great faculty,
Sure does.
so that's,
So going back now, we're going to look at the right side. Remember, they have to meet one indicator in ELA, as Dr. Thiele pointed out, and one in math. So we're going to look at now the ACT math score of 22 and math in senior year, and the SAT subject score in math of 530 or higher, of course, and then math in senior year. We're very fortunate in the sense that the vast majority of our students take math their senior year. We have a very, very small, minute percent of students that do not take math. And oftentimes, those students might have special needs or those kinds of things. I will point out that 530, as I did point out with the evidence-based reading and writing, is that benchmark from SAT. So, same idea, but looking now at math. Again, we're just looking at those students that fall within the GPA of 2.8 to 4.0, those that met the minimum SAT score, and/or, many of them did meet both, but they're unique, so, and have senior year math course. And again, our percentages are quite high.
But not as strong.
Not as strong as they are in evidence-based reading and writing, and yet, if you
yet
look at our
The
math,
district-wide, the math score for
Is
SAT
higher.
Yeah, right.
is higher.
It's
know.
kind of weird.
but it's, in a sense, it can be a small group of students that can shift it either way. And it is. And this score is 530, but if you go back,
Yeah.
it's 480.
80.
So
Sure.
that's part of it.
Standards higher.
yeah.
The standard's higher. And those standards align to not the state levels, but the SAT college career readiness benchmark, that's 75%, which is why I shared that in the beginning, so you would understand that there's the SAT, which is looking at how students will do as freshmen in college. There's Illinois that's looking at the levels of meeting the state standards, and they're not necessarily the same thing. So tonight, we looked at SAT. We also looked a little bit at ACT because I thought it kind of made sense to figure out which was which. We'll continue looking at some ACT and math, as I said earlier, and some of the other areas. And as other rules develop, we'll know what to be looking for as well. We don't necessarily know right now all those other indicators. That was a lot.
Eventually, we'll pull all this together and give you like where we sit in the big picture. But remember, we're waiting for that last bullet. We're waiting for some of the rules to come out so we can give you some more definitive numbers. But we hope that this is helpful a little bit along the way so you kind of understand how the complexities of this work, and Gina's spending a lot of time digging in.
Can you remind us, is ESSA just a grading system for school districts, or is it tied to funding in any way? What's the point of ESSA?
Well, it depends on who you talk to, Don.
Give him your master pen.
Yes, please. It depends on who you talk to. If you talk to leaders at ISB, they say that this is a tool for identifying areas in which schools can both lead and grow and connect those schools together to help push the entire state forward. That's what ISB is taking as their approach towards ESSA. But you can be sure that it will also be used to grade schools and to rank schools and to disaggregate schools. There are also pieces of ESSA that overlap with the evidence-based model. So although it's not necessarily part of ESSA, it's the same measures in the evidence-based model, so they correlate or overlap in what you're reporting out, although are separate laws. Right? But they're collecting the same data. One is going towards a funding formula and one is going towards accountability, but it's the same factor.
I see.
If that's clear as mud. And this is all still being worked through. I'm part of a group that's working on the materials that will present this to all the other school districts across the state. So myself and another superintendent are part of a team that will be leading 4 workshops after the first of the year. So I should know my stuff pretty well, because I'll go through the first round. I'll become somebody who can train on this, so hopefully, as I said, I've asked our staff to step up where they have the opportunity to lead in this way. I'm doing the same, right? I wouldn't ask my staff to do anything that I wouldn't. So we should have a good feel and handle on this as a district going forward.
One other question, I know we've got a lot on our agenda, I'm sorry, but.
No, that's all right.
Isn't some of the standards in ESSA, aren't they defined by each district differently?
Correct.
So how could we use it as a grading system statewide if each school has a different measure and standard for college and career readiness?
Because there will be certain things where we just check off that they've met the local requirements of college and career ready, and we certify that because those are under the local control aspect of that. So what our board sees as being as college and career ready, another local school board might see other aspects of it, but those are the pieces that ESSA relinquishes to local control. So in those, we would check that a student has met those requirements, but meeting those, what it takes to meet those requirements will be up to this board to determine.
So the question, though, is how you can take what we're doing here and compare it to another
Because
school.
it's such a small component of that it isn't significantly,
Right.
or isn't significant when you look at the state as a whole, or the district as a whole.
But you could do you could statistically manipulate it.
Oh,
to
yeah.
do weighted averages and things like that. And
But for the small amount that they're turning over to you and trusting you with as a local board, they're not that worried about it.
Okay.
So I don't want to prolong the conversation either. So this kind of maybe takes a little bit away from the report out from IASB, our conference this weekend. Rick and Dan and I attended, and maybe some others did too at a different time, but we attended a session on SAT and AP. And one of the things that I came away from that with was the wonderful opportunity for the students to tie their PSAT results to Khan Academy, and how some schools are actually in the classroom. The teachers are encouraging the students to go into Khan Academy and you can take up to 8 practice SATs and get instant scoring, and I mean, really awesome. So are we doing that?
We have, I can't say every teacher's doing that, right? But we have some teachers that have actually built it into their curriculum. So they're using Khan actually in the classroom, in both reading and in math. We also went in, I shouldn't say that, but we have administrators that went in and spoke to like the lunch resource, students like the juniors in the lunch resource opposite lunch, 22-minute, and talked about Khan Academy. Students signed up for accounts with Khan Academy. On our assessment page that Jill put together on our website. There's information about Khan Academy, so it's really exciting. And the kids really seem to take to it. And it's free.
Well, that's the thing,
can't beat it.
as a parent of a current junior, that's the thing, it just, because in the past, it's been, okay, I'm going to have my child take the ACT and then take it again and practice, that way and get scores back and maybe do some tutoring. But this is really a wonderful resource because that Khan Academy, you're actually getting steered to things within the Khan Academy based on how you did in that practice test. So you're getting more targeted, personal instruction that is going to help you. And the stat that we heard was that the students that spend at least 20 hours in this are raising their scores by at least 100 points on the SAT when they do this. Now, some of that, it's hard to say that that's all causal, but because there's certainly continuing education going on in the classroom while this is happening too. Mm-hmm. But still, that's a great result, and we know it's not hurting. So it's definitely helping. Whether or not it's helping as much as they're but that's the fact.
So one thing I want to point out about that, so our students our freshmen took PSAT 8-9 in April.
Right.
And the sophomores took 10. And you're right, those scores link directly into Khan. However, we wanted our students to practice before then. You can actually go in, I did it as if I was a student, and go in and take the Khan assessment. Even without that linkage to PSAT, you can go in and take that assessment, and then it directs you and differentiates. It adapts based on where you did on that assessment. But even after the fact, you can link your College Board account with that Khan account, so that then it marries the two.
How cool.
Yeah, it's really impressive.
Really cool. So if we can take advantage of this, that could further help our
And when the state of Illinois chose the SAT over the ACT, those were some of the value adds they were considering when they made the move here.
So it was a good choice.
Mm-hmm.
But thank you, Gina.
Thank you, Jenny. Excellent as always. Now we have everybody's favorite topic, summer school and the summer calendar.
All right, so last year, we tried out this idea of during summer school, moving to a 4-day school week and a 4-day office week, and shifting time and schedules around to make that work. At the end of the summer, we formally surveyed all summer school teachers, all summer school students. Our administrators went around and talked to support staff and other administrators that were here over the summer, and by a landslide, it came back that people greatly enjoyed those 4-day weeks. One of the requests that came from our teachers and students was to change the schedule a little bit so that it ended earlier in July than the last time. It ran right up till the end of July last year. Mm-hmm. Remember, though, we also had a school year that ended later with one beginning earlier. So this year we have the advantage of school ending earlier. What's not reflected up there is that our students actually would have the last week there of July is a vacation week as well. However, we can't start, May. That would be May up there. I do calendar well. They'd have that week off, but we can't start summer school until the 11th because of our partner elementary schools and when their calendar ends. So that makes it so that June 11th would be the start of summer school. If you could scroll down, you'll see the month of July. Now, at the request of our students and teachers that were here last summer, last year they had the full week of the 4th of July off. But it was, the feedback was pretty strong about ending before that last week of July. So we do a couple of days in June and July for second semester. They get half a week off for 4th of July, and then that gets them out by the 19th of July. Just as we have done traditionally, we have these traditional office hours the first and last week of the summer for our support staff and administrators, which puts us in through about 150, I don't know, is it 150? On Fridays. So as we get closer to the beginning of the school year, we start to be open all 5 days for people that are coming in with questions and those kinds of things. But we continue to have the offices closed for 7 Fridays, which our CMG staff felt was very helpful in having the buildings free and open and accessible with nobody there, to be able to do whatever they needed in the space without having to worry about interrupting students or staff in any way when they worked on the buildings. So, and we're just, later on tonight, we'll ask for action on this, but at this point, I'll take any questions that you have. Yes, Don?
If, hypothetically, if a ballot question was put on in the spring and approval was made, would there be any impact on this calendar? Have you thought through those?
Yeah, it could. This is a year-by-year approval by the board. Oh, sorry, Cheryl. And let's say that there's an approval and then we need more consecutive weeks available. We may have to recommend to go back to 5-day weeks, so it's less weeks of the summer. So we have more weeks with the buildings without anybody in them.
Yeah.
So it'll just depend year to year, although maybe this one makes sense where they prefer to just have a weekly time when the buildings are, I don't know, but yes, a huge facilities plan could impact our recommendations in future years for how we schedule our weeks.
Future years, not this summer.
Not this summer.
Because you have to give enough advance notice for parents and students to make a decision.
Yep.
So what, if any, impact does our idea of having air conditioning, how does that play into any of this?
Jim's worked through this with our architects with the assumption that this is our calendar and our weeks that are available. And although it will be a very busy summer, we believe that if there was successful passage of a referendum in March, which isn't even a question yet, but should it be and should it pass, that we would be able to have most, if not all, of our spaces air conditioned for the start of the school. There might be a couple of challenging areas that trickle into the first couple of weeks of school for air conditioning to come up online, but almost all of our instructional spaces would be air conditioned.
Currently, are the spaces that we use for summer school air-conditioned spaces?
Yes.
Yes.
And most of the work will be done in
Right.
the older wings, so it will have no impact on this classrooms that are being used. So really, this schedule means nothing if we want to have with that air conditioning.
Okay.
And it's just the deadline of that August 17th, I think it is. That it's crucial that we regain it close.
Got it.
Jim,
Yes.
if the deadline's not met and not all the rooms are air-conditioned, do you still have the option to rent the portable units?
Absolutely.
And then you mentioned that that we needed to start on June 11th. Couldn't start earlier because of conflict with district.
Our partner elementary schools.
So, silly question maybe. Why does that matter?
Many of them could be enrolled in our summer school programming.
Okay,
So they'd have to be in 2 places at once, which.
So is there a number of 8th graders who are actually coming in taking summer? Because I didn't think that was really happening.
That is true. However, we also have what's called Summer Bridge. I know you've heard me report about it
Yes.
before. Summer Bridge is a program for reading and math for incoming freshmen who fall below level. That is just for freshmen. It runs the same hours as summer school.
Okay.
Whole summer?
And-
Does it run the whole summer?
Yes.
All-
Students can sign up for
Okay.
one semester, or the other semester, or both.
So it's that group then that's going to be coming in?
Right, and so that's usually
Okay.
like 40 to 55 kids, depends on the year. So that's one. I also went back and looked at the last 3 years, I don't have that document up, the last 3 years to see how many students and from what feeder, what sender schools came, and what course they took, because I have a list here of all the sender schools when their deadline, or when their release, as well as their emergency days, and we did not find a conflict in 3 years. We did have some students do second semester of Math 1, but that was second semester, which doesn't start until the last week of
You go up
June.
one.
So
Last
we
week
would
of
be
June.
fine. Now, again, could there be a student who tries to enroll that's, there could be one or two, but we looked at like a 3-year path. I looked at the emergency days. Even with this, we could have 4 emergency days taken by District 58 and we'd be okay.
Okay.
Now, if we end up with a 5th one, that would be on the 11th, and that could be a conflict. But we haven't taken 5 emergency days in, okay, I know, is that not going to?
No, yeah.
We're just going to stop, I'm going to stop.
Yeah.
But we did, we looked at,
We're very confident that this is the right start time.
All right. I was just
As you can see, Gina's put a lot of work into it.
just curious how those two.
Yeah.
Okay.
Anything more?
Any other questions?
Capital improvement.
All right, I'm going to bring Jim up to the microphone for this.
It's always good to improve your capital.
And my legs are hurting back there. Okay. Good evening, everyone. Once again, we got another year of capital improvement. 1819, wow, it seems like it's so distant, don't it? So many of them. Okay, before I can start going through the list, and there's a lot this year, just wanted to kind of give a broad view of what we're doing. The budget for the 18-19 year is 1.3 million. That was the same as this past year. I also want to give you a quick update on our 10-year life safety. We're on year 3. We have 2 more years. All the major big projects are done and completed. We have numerous small projects to do. I think we'll be done way before the 5th year. So within the next 2, I think we'll be complete. So still a few things to do on that, and I'll keep reporting back to you and tell you how we're doing with that. So all has been successful with the life safety work. On the capital list that you see in front of you, tonight there's a lot of carpet tile replacement and equipment replacement. So you're going to see a lot of that as I go through these. Also, none of these will have a negative impact if there is ever a master facility plan. So I just want to say that up front before I start going through it. Let's start with the annuals that are district-wide, the large RMS, that's repair and maintenance, asphalt, concrete, mechanicals at the buildings, and anything that comes up unexpectedly throughout the year. So that is kind of what I control, and don't release many of those items to spring, and then hold back a little bit for the year to come, just in case we have any problems in the buildings. And annual bleacher inspection and repairs, we do this yearly, and we don't have to, but we do. And I'm glad that we do, because we find things. And sometimes it's just tightening a bolt. So we get an expert out, they go through the outdoor and the indoor bleachers in its entirety and find things, and then we get a report, and we do some of the work, and we hire out for some of the other work. So that's that line item, 15,000. Annual FF&E, that's furniture, fixtures, and equipment. That's both for north and south. That's for the schools to buy chairs, tables, student desks, whatever the need is at the buildings. Also, annual turf repairs for the 2 buildings. This is for the turf and green space for north and south. Okay, let's start with north. As you know, this past year we did a lot of work at Legion Field. I hope you had a chance to get out there. A lot of good improvements. Again, we're going to do one more. This is the parking lot. If you ever drove into the field, you'll notice that that first turn into it's kind of rocky, bumpy, and should be widened out a little bit. So we're going to do that work along with putting a layer on the whole parking lot, coning it, and striping it as well. So more improvements coming to the Legion Field. This one's been a couple of years coming. It's been on our radar, the T99 exterior sign. This is a wall sign. Working with the village, the T99 building zone, a B1, that's a business 1. So we don't see any problems with the village. They're aware of what we're doing. So we're going to get a permit from them and put some signage out there with a light on it, so it's recognizable from the street.
So it's not electric, huh?
Terry.
It will not be a digital sign.
Are correct.
It's my fault. I whispered it just to get it. So,
Mike.
I'm sorry, I have to
Mike,
make
we're going to
sure
take that pin away.
no, that's the 3rd time tonight somebody's taken away.
Yeah.
The infill paver work for North, as you know, in 2011, 2012, we did a lot of work in the parking lots in the area behind the concession stand and the walkway behind the stadium bleachers. A lot of bricks. We need to put granular infill in these. So this is the maintenance work that needs to be done to get those back up and looking good. And there's, if you walk it, you'll notice that something's missing. So we'll do that work next summer at North.
But this is still a lot cheaper. I remember when we put the pavers in initially, this is a lot cheaper than keeping up asphalt.
It sure is.
Yeah.
It really is. And remember, this is 2018 now. 2011, 2012, that's 6-7 years. Well, when you're doing asphalt, you're almost doing more work on a bi-yearly basis than you are 6 or 7 or 8 years. So, and really, it's not a lot. It's a huge area. That's a big parking lot. Kitchen steamer replacement at North. This is one in the kitchen area. Current steamer is just falling apart. Old parts are now become unavailable for repairs. Room 244, interesting room at North High. It's behind room 248, if you're familiar with the building. It's currently used for health class throughout the day. It has carpet. It was used for a different purpose in the past. We want to get that carpet out, and we've been holding this one off because underneath that carpet, of course, is asbestos mastic.
Good place to teach health.
So this will entail the asbestos to be taken out, the mastic, everything, the carpet, and then we'll replace it with tile, like our other standards for classrooms. So a lot of work in that area. Upgrade building automation system, BAS. This has been going on for a couple of years now. We knew a few years ago that the implementation of new building automation system at both schools were needed. That was way over $1 million at each school. So what we decided to do was implement this in staggered years at both schools. You've seen it for 2 years, smaller versions. This is a big one for both North and South. You'll see it at South later down in this capital plan. So this is all the front end, the hardware, the controls that go to air handlers, classrooms, rooftop units. So it gives us greater control, better visuals. Ultimately, as we control better in our buildings, all our units, we save energy with that control. Don't want to go into it too deep, but there's a lot to it, and these are great improvements. I've been looking forward to this. Back to the pool. Can't be a year without doing something in that pool, right? And you'll see this at both campuses as well. Starting blocks.
Yeah.
Used to be
On the
done.
radar as well for the
Used to
last
be
2
done.
years.
Yes.
I know some of you already know that this is a needed improvement, especially for holding regional and sectional meets in the future. So we'll replace all the blocks at both campuses. Scrubbing machine, these are the Zambonis, we call them. Back in '99, when we built out the field houses at our 2 buildings, they'll be 19 years old, and they're getting older. They're not doing as good a job. They're breaking down. We're putting a lot of money in them. We want to get new ones and get our floors and indoor tracks cleaner. So looking forward to this, again, both schools.
I must say, I did notice that when I was there for the Young Hearts for Life. It was
Yep, not doing as good of a job as they used to. Those machines die after a while.
yeah.
Next item at North is replacing a riding scrubber. These are hallway scrubbers for the buildings that are riders. This is an older machine, falling apart again, putting batteries in, repairing it constantly, just needs to be replaced. Field machine and aerator at North. This is a long time coming. You guys are going to enjoy this. The aerator at North is a Ryan aerator, and Mark, hang on to your hat down there. This is a 1965 aerator we're replacing. We've got our life's worth out of it.
Another year or two.
I've held out as long as I can, but I don't think I can do it. And also a 1994 Kubota field machine. So a Nothing more to be said.
Yeah.
That's our oldest piece of equipment in the district, by the way.
We can sell it on eBay as a collector's piece.
Yeah.
Probably could.
Yeah.
I'm not kidding.
Okay,
Or turn it into a trophy.
good. Historic.
Big trophy.
More carpet replacement. Currently, there's carpet in these rooms, athletic office and duplicating room at North. Both are failing. Good news, there's no asbestos underneath it. So it's just a carpet replacement. The maintenance garage is the standalone garage building north of the campus of the field. Just miscellaneous repairs. The rolling door needs to be worked on. The cement floor needs some work, and other areas inside need repairs. Main office at North, this is the original carpet from the 99 edition. It's ripping in areas and failing. It also, back when in 99, we put carpet in the main office, and if you look down at the floor that you're, the building we're in right now, I like using these carpet squares. And the carpet that's at North right now is not that. So if you have an area that's bad, you can't rip up that one piece or two piece of carpet. It just looks bad and you can't do much with it. What I love about this is when one goes here at the ASC or one rips, I've got spares and I can put it in. It's just pulling up and dropping down. So really from this point on, that's kind of our standard. I like using it, so we've been implementing it in all of our projects.
Good plan.
Concrete steps. I put exit 9, probably don't know where that's at, but it's adjacent to the boiler house. It's on the south-west end of the building where special services are. This is an area where the steps and the landings just deteriorating. It also, in the past, had a wooden ADA ramp that was used to get out of the building. What we want to do is replace the steps and landing and also build a concrete ramp with railings and put that back in so it can be functional. Room 050, that's in the basement. I'm sure many of you are aware of it. Those are the large areas or study halls. Half of the room, we did some work a few years past. The other half, we tiled that half. The other half is still old carpet. And guess what? Asbestos again. So we gotta abate that, get the carpet out, and tile that half of that large room, which is roughly like 2 huge classrooms. Okay, switching gears, let's go to South. First 2 are annuals that I talked about earlier, the FF&E and grounds repair. First item, the upgrade of the sound system. This is for the large gymnasium. Their speakers and their system is failing. It's outdated. So this will be full replacement of speakers and the whole system itself. So it's due. I'm glad we're doing it this year.
Needs to be done.
Renovation of bathrooms. Mike Reyes did a wonderful job last year with the in-house folks, the maintenance crew. They redid a set of bathrooms up on the 3rd floor. It looks wonderful. That took a lot of time. I told him, let's get some quotes. Let's get some help. Let's not have you do every one yourself. So maybe we can do a few this year. So there we have a number where we're going to do more renovation of bathrooms at South, which I feel are needed and they did lights, fixtures, tiles. If you went into that 3rd floor restrooms, you'll see that it's really a nice job. So we're going to do more work and continue on.
That's good.
Upgrade the billing automation system, and now you'll see that's a large number. They have much more to do, and it's crucial that we do all that at once at South. So it's going to be a big chunk of what's left to be done over there. Now remember, as we get these new units, like this past year at North when we put in the large air handlers and the air conditioning air handler units for the library, those come with the controls. We pay for that as a whole package. These are all the older systems, all the univentilators that are throughout the room. So if you think about it, as we prep and go into a possible air conditioning our buildings, all our classrooms. We're walking right into it. This is useful. We're paying for it right now. We're going to get this work done. And then it'll be easier in time, it'll be less time to do in the project. Prepping. Another lighting project. We've done wonderful work in our buildings the last few years, in our gymnasiums especially. This is the small gymnasium at South. We'll replace with LED lighting, similar to what we've done in the large gyms at the campuses. I will apply for a grant. They're out there from DCEO, so if we'll get some money back. So, of course, we'll be saving energy again with these big lamps. The scrubbing machines, field house, same as North. We're getting the exact machines at each school. Freshman baseball field protection. Adding some fencing to the backstop over home plate and some safety netting on the third base line. So this is the field that is right past the lot right out here as you go, and the third base line is right where the shot put area is for the track and field. So that, hence the netting for safety on that end. And then the backstop is for foul balls to be hit over, ultimately going to the field. Varsity field diamond work. Over the years, the fields lose their crown. It's time to do some work on the infield and baselines at South. This is reconstructing and constructing and grading to restore it back to normal. Right now, there's dips down the first base line and third base line. So, if you're going to first base, if you're not fast and you got to go uphill, it's going to take you a little while longer to get there. We got a good defensive team that year. But honestly, we want to get the field restored back to the way it was, and getting the crown and the infield work done is needed in the varsity field. And last but not least, starting blocks, again, in the auditoriums. This is for the south side of town, and I think these are needed as well.
Yes.
Whew. Okay, 157 of them, I think. Any questions, I will field and answer the best I can.
Jim, I know you've got probably a list of things that you weren't able to get on for this year. I just wonder, going forward with our master facilities plan, that in future years, perhaps with a good deal of the work we might be doing with that more of the dollars annually might be able to be allocated to more of those non-building things, but rather the grounds repair, equipment, those sorts of things. Hopefully, our plan might tick off a few of those things that are farther down on your list. Is that
absolutely?
Yeah.
And as we, possibly proceed into something like that, I'm already thinking, what can I get in there? And I've been doing this for 3 years, thinking, well, I'll hold off on that because I know it'll be incorporated with that. So yes, and hopefully if we do that full-scale plan or a small-scale plan or any kind of plan, I'm going to incorporate in the design and sneak in items that are already in there. Financially, that's how they get to the budget number, and knock off some of these big ones that really, they hit this 1.3 hard. When you $250,000 projects and 300,000, when the schools are putting their list together, when they have 2 items that get them to 500,000, and they've got 10 more that they really want to do, it's hard getting those small ones in when the higher priorities are those large items. So you're absolutely correct.
So another advantage, we've got over 1 million square feet of space between the two schools, correct?
All the
campuses as well, T99 and everything. So it's I don't know. My guess is that we're doing an exceptional job just spending 1.3 on the amount of space that we have, and then going forward, if we can do some things with master facilities to lessen the need for this, that's just great. So
Absolutely.
just want to put that in there.
And I'll remind the board that we don't approve this plan. We approve them as Jim goes to get the work done, and they come throughout the year. But now you know when these things come back for approval, kind of they were on your radar to begin with.
And these numbers can change.
Yes.
And they do, and let me explain it, because it's really a process. And I'm very good at pushing the schools, even in the summertime, to already start thinking about these. So go get quotes. Let's get White involved. What is really needed? And a lot of these, here's what happens. It's this. You'll get a bid that's 10,000 over, and that one's going to come in 10,000 under, and it's just a flip-flop. The bottom line is really my concern, because I really don't want to go to Mark's office and say I need another $100,000, or I want to pull a project.
Yeah.
But it's a teeter-totter effect.
See the look you got?
I think we get 2 more years out of that aerator.
65, I mean, come on. So that's what really happens here, and these are really good numbers, but that's never the actuals. But they're pretty darn close.
I think there would be some people that are going to be happy to see some of those things on there.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
All right.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jim.
Tax levy request.
Turn this over to Mark.
Well, this is how we pay for some of those additions, those improvements.
Right. Right.
And on the graph up there, you can, for those who've been here, I think I've used pretty much the same graph for 20 some odd years, so hopefully you're familiar with it.
Different numbers, though.
What's in the blue section, really, the 2016 assessed value of $4.2 billion. It's a strength of our district to have such a large assessed valuation. And a 2.1% increase is what the tax levy, the tax cap limit is for this levy. That 2.1% is the only thing we know for sure for our levy request. But we know that that's locked in. We know that that's the most that, in aggregate, our current taxpayers will pay more next year. In fact, for all of everybody's tax bill, it should be limited to 2.1% because all the taxing bodies are tax capped in DuPage County and use that same factor, are stuck with that same factor. We just came off a 0.7% and a 0.8% tax cap for the last 2 years, so we're really happy that the threatened tax freeze, property tax freeze that was passed by the House, Illinois House, but not called to a vote in the Senate, is not passed. They still could come back and get us.
Yeah.
But we're thinking that at least the hope is that if they don't come back until January, all of the taxing bodies will have passed the levy at that point, and they'd be telling everybody that knocking the heck out of all those levy requests. It'd be pretty disruptive to all the entities. So we're hoping that this 2.1% increase is going to get through. Because we don't know everything, that's what the yellow section does for us. It actually is more of a challenge for us, or a potential threat, if the assessed valuation were to drop. Because then the lower the assessed valuation, to get the same dollar amount out of that assessed valuation, your tax rate has to go up. District 99 does not have any, I don't have any concerns that the assessed valuation would have to drop by 50% before we would be capped out. We have such a low rate right now that it would be very difficult for us to be capped out. But the margin of possibility is like a 4% increase. We met with each of the 4 assessors, which encompass our district. They are told by the state what percentage increase they need to apply to their townships. I took that, added it to last year's actuals, and we came up with an estimate. So I'm thinking in the green side over here that the assessed valuation change should be about 4.6% is what we calculate that to be. New construction is going to be a little more difficult this year. It's a good thing. Last year was 0.7. The year before that was 0.6, less than 1%. So we had some really slow years still, but it is growing back, and it's typically is in the 1% range. Our highest ever was 2.2, but that was a one-time hit, and usually it's about 1 to 1.2. We're going to protect ourselves with a 1.2% new construction estimate as part of this request, and expected to be really closer to 1% based on the information the assessors have given us. So still, we're seeing some big properties come on, though. Timber Edge and where the Hyde Tree Farm used to be, a lot of that is coming on, and there's some other developments in Lyle Township. There's a large senior development that's coming on, although some of that will be dropped because it's a subsidized center, and so part of their assessed valuation is based on the revenue that they can generate, and they don't count the federal subsidy. They only count what the tenants are paying when they do that calculation. So we've taken all that into consideration, and that's why I think we'll probably be closer to 1% than what some of the other factors would tell us. So we're asking for $76,800,000. It's a total of 3.3% higher than last year. Again, we know that 2.1% of that should be from existing taxpayers. We're saying possibly 1.2 of that 3.3 will be new construction, new properties coming onto the tax rolls. That's what the request protects us to that level, but we expect it to really, if you go to this lower right-hand side here, we really expect it to be a 3.1% overall increase, even though we're asking for 3.3. We'll probably have to reduce our levy request by 0.2% in the spring when we find out what the actual EAV is and what the actual new construction values are. And then that would give us the 1% of new construction dollars on top of the 2.1 that we get from our existing taxpayers. So we've usually been able to hit this pretty close, and I hope we don't have any unusual surprises, but I think we're covered. So the request is for $76.8 million levy request, and there'll be an action item following. Okay. Any questions?
And that's the annual impact on a $300,000 value home is $39.
Yeah. Yep. $39. Last year it was in the about $18 because it was 0.7.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Any other questions?
I do want to, and I will do this every year that Mark is here and does this, commend Mark for putting in the work to bring the community an actual estimate. Many school districts will not put in this kind of work and will just ask for a 5 or 6% levy or a higher amount just to make sure that they're covered. The work that Mark does demonstrates the effort that this district puts in to be clear and transparent and accurate in any numbers that we bring the community, so that there's not this impression that we are padding numbers in any way. These are as accurate as I think anybody in the state could predict, and just shows the transparency and honesty that we try to provide our community through this work. So thank you, Mark.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mark. That's absolutely 110% correct.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Don.
This is 110%. We're wondering who's cooking your books.
There's emphasis, Nancy.
Thank you, Mike. Anything else on the tax levy? Moving on to the reports from the IASB, IASA, IASBO annual conference.
Just a reminder to the public that every year there is a professional development opportunity that our board has been active in for years in developing and growing as a board. This is commonly referred to as the joint annual conference, and we had all of our board members down there this past week. Board member Renner actually presented. Mark and Jeree, who's in the audience, presented. Gina did, and along with John Orrick, one of our staff members. So we were well represented at the conference. And this is the opportunity for board members to bring back any short items that they would like to share with the group.
Well, I would just like to say, you kind of stole the thunder, but we did have several people present. And I want to thank you because that's been an interest of this board's for many years. And I'm really grateful for the people who presented. It's no small thing to submit a presentation and deliver it. And I wasn't able to go to Mark's, but I went to Don's and to Gina's. And I was very proud to have District 99 represented so well.
Yes, ditto. I went to the roundtables with Gina and Don, and they did just a marvelous job. So I'm sorry I didn't get a chance to go to yours, Mark, but.
You wouldn't have got in anyway with standing room only. They were pushing people away.
Well, I'm sure of that. Probably yours was the most popular of all of them.
2,000 room.
And, yeah, and I'm sorry I missed that one. So, but I just want to say thank you and
so much.
congratulations on what a nice job. You made us proud.
Very proud.
All of you.
I wanted to add, as a new board member, I thought the conference was very well done. Lots of good information that I learned. One of the sessions I attended was how does a bill become a law? So that was very informative, and we actually did some role playing there as well. And the sessions, I think I only made it to done session because I was interested. I figured I could talk to you guys anytime. No, I'm kidding. But I was interested in quite a few things and wanted to at least see one of our staff members kind of present. So good job. I'm sure you guys did well as well. Thanks, Judy.
I'd like to add, I went to a session about LGBT, and I submitted the slides. I got a copy of the slides today. I sent them on to Hank, and we should, and I felt good because they talked a lot about what the problems some of the boards are wrestling, or some of the school districts are wrestling with, and I think we've done very well in keeping with both the spirit and the intent, the spirit of the law and the law itself. So I'm very proud of our district, and I'd ask that if you wouldn't mind sending it out to everybody, the notes from that I forwarded to you today. That'd be great. Thanks. Anything else?
I was at the delegate assembly, so everything that was recommended passed, although there was a little bit of debate over two items. One was concerning a proposal to recommend a 1% state sales tax for education, and that did not go forward. And then the other one had to do with allowing school boards and school districts the option of having their teachers and administrators have handguns.
Wow.
And
I warned you that was going to be an interesting conversation.
and that was interesting, but that did not move forward either. But it was closer than you'd think. And it was interesting, the smaller school districts, in more rural areas, sometimes the responders are 15 to 30 minutes away, and so that was really where some of that was coming from. But they understood the other side of it too. So it was lively. But and then I also attended a session on the 5 essentials. And while they were giving their presentation, I went on Illinois Report Card and then into the 5 Essentials survey and started digging into some of the report outs on District 99, and was really pleased at the results I saw there, actually. So it's a nice tool for us. And I know Gina's talked about it before. I think you've been the one to, anyhow. So that's interesting. You might want to look that up sometime. So.
Anybody else? Okay. Let's move on. Have we had any Freedom of Information requests?
2 received and both responded to.
Thank you. Okay, we're going to move on to the consent agenda. I am going to remove item C from the agenda.
No. We're going to amend item C.
I'm sorry, we're going to amend item C.
Sorry to correct you, Nancy.
That's okay. I deserve to be corrected. We're going to amend item C, and I know Pete has some
And
other
also an
updates.
amendment to item A, I believe. So do you want Pete to amend those, and then we can take a
Yes.
motion on it?
All right, thank you, Dr. Kupka. As you mentioned, we've got 2 personnel reports that we want to make note of some changes. Personnel Report A, from the time it was originally posted to now, we have added 2 items, excuse me, under appointment classified. We've added Patricia Cole, Senior Executive Secretary at North High. And under the transfer of position, we've added Lori Balsamo, Senior Secretary, moving to Senior Executive Secretary, the bookkeeper position at North High. So those are additions from what was originally posted last week. And then under Personnel Report C, we want to amend this report to remove from the termination classified list employee number 2017.1.
Okay.
And allow the rest of that document to move forward.
Is there any other item that any member of the board would like to remove from the consent agenda? Hearing none, we need a motion to approve personnel report, appointment classified.
I'll make a motion for the Board of Education to approve the consent agenda as presented, which includes Personnel Report A, Personnel Report B, Personnel Report C, acceptance of District 99 Education Foundation grants, and E, the financial pages.
Second.
Thanks, Mike.
Rick Pevenato.
Aye.
Mike Davenport.
Aye.
Cheryl Fuller.
Aye.
Dan Nicholas.
Aye.
Terry Pavasich.
Aye.
Don Renner.
Aye.
Nancy Kupka.
Aye, and the consent agenda passes. Thank you very much. Moving on to recommendations for action, the approval of the 2018 summer school and summer calendar.
I move that we approve the 2018 summer school calendar.
I second the motion.
Terry Pavasich.
Aye.
Dan Nicholas.
Aye.
Rick Pevenato.
Aye.
Don Renner.
Aye.
Mike Davenport.
Aye.
Cheryl Fuller.
Aye.
And Nancy Kupka.
Aye, motion passes. Approval of amendments to IRS Section 125, the cafeteria plan.
This was discussed, I think, the last board meeting, so 2
Yeah.
meetings ago. Mark, anything to add to that?
Just that when we started redrafting it last month at the regular meeting, I mentioned that we were going to change to a calendar year, really for convenience. The insurance committee felt that would help keep it straight because it'd be in alignment with IRS's limitations are based on calendar years always. And as we started to redraft that, Nyhart said, there's other options you can do which would have been changed in law when IRS has made it more lenient to carry over up to $500 at the end of the calendar year into the next plan year. And it's just another benefit that we could put into the plan, and so it doesn't cost us anything. So we suggested that, and it's drawn up with that in mind.
Okay, very good. I move that we approve the amendments for the IRS Section 125 cafeteria plan.
Second.
Terry Pavasich.
Aye.
Mike Davenport.
Aye.
Cheryl Fuller.
Aye.
Dan Nicholas.
Aye.
Rick Pevenato.
Aye.
Don Renner.
Aye.
And Nancy Kupka.
Aye, motion carries. Approval of the 2017 tax levy.
This is Mark's presentation from earlier this evening.
I move that we approve the tax levy for 2017.
Second.
Sherrill? Seconds. I
Do we
didn't
need the
catch.
whole motion read? It's there. Do we need the certificate of the tax levy?
I mean, typically, it's never been challenged, but I think it never hurts to have it written. I mean, it's probably one of the most
I'm sorry to interrupt. Could you read the motion as the
Oh.
recommended action is presented, just in
Where-
case we run
It's
into
not a bad
legal?
On the agenda.
Oh, okay, all right. All right, I can do that. I was just looking at the thing. Okay. The motion for the Board of Education to approve the amendments to the IRS.
Nope. Next
Wait.
one.
Oh, I already did that one.
Yeah.
Sorry. Sorry, can't read. Okay, the motion for the Board of Education to approve the 2017 certificate of tax levy, the certificate of, certification of the certificate of the tax levy.
Tongue twister.
and the-
Can you make it larger?
Yeah, really. Yeah, could you make it? And the certificate of compliance with the truth in taxation laws as presented.
Thank you, Terry.
Sorry. I don't read well.
It's small.
Sherrill, second. I couldn't hear the,
Second.
She wasn't going to give it up.
okay, Don, second. We got more seconds, we got.
Okay. Terry Pavasich.
Aye.
Don Renner.
Aye.
Mike Davenport.
Aye.
Cheryl Fuller.
Aye.
Dan Nicholas.
Aye.
And Rick Pevenato.
Aye.
And Nancy Kupka.
Aye, it carries. Thank you. Letter D. Can somebody read the entire thing, please? I know.
I'd like to make a motion.
Oh, go ahead.
I'd like to make a motion for the Board of Education to hold the December 19, 2017 board meeting entirely in closed session for the purpose of self-evaluation, practices and procedures on or professional ethics when meeting with the representative of a statewide association of which the district is a member.
Second.
Mike.
Rick Pevenato.
Aye.
Mike Davenport.
Aye.
Cheryl Fuller.
Aye.
Dan Nicholas.
Aye.
Terry Pavasich.
Aye.
Don Renner.
Aye.
And Nancy Kupka.
Aye, motion carries. Thank you. Policy Committee report, second meeting.
These were.
Second reading.
Second reading. These were brought for first reading a month ago.
Long weekend.
It was. Most of these, I think maybe even all of them, are cleanup in nature. There's really no significant changes in these. These are just our constant cleaning and caring of our policy. And there was no questions brought forward to me, policy committee members, anything?
No.
Since the last meeting, so.
So punctuation.
Yeah, mostly punctuation.
Okay. Nothing else under new business?
We need,
Our policy guys here.
I make a motion to approve the changes as presented on the.
I'll second that.
Thank you. Dan Nicholas.
Aye.
Rick Pavanato.
Aye.
Don Renner.
Aye.
Mike Davenport.
Aye.
Cheryl Fuller.
Aye.
Terry Pavasich.
Aye.
Nancy Kupka.
Aye. Policy committee carries. No more new business?
no new business.
This is the second reception of visitors, which is intended for audience members to address the board on any topic pertaining to Community High School District 99. Is there anybody who wishes to address the board? Hearing none, we'll move on to communications and announcements. Do we have anything to add about LEND?
I don't think so. I actually missed the last meeting prior to the Lynn breakfast, so if you.
Sure, I can give a quick update. We had a group of local legislators, including David Olson and Patty Bellick, there to hear about. First, they were on a panel where we addressed them about the potential property freeze legislation, and I appreciated them being present and hearing from local schools about the impact that would have. And then Dr. Lynn Paniga from Lake Park and I presented on the challenges around dual credit and the legislative efforts that we're making on that moving forward, which will pick up after the first of the year. We have a small working group that will continue to work to move legislation forward on dual credit across the state next year.
Okay. For SACID, sorry, I have to read from my notes. SACID has had more students enrolled than they had anticipated, and it's putting kind of a bit of a crunch on some of their services, but they're soldiering through. They have ratified their Support Staff Association contract and are continuing to work with their OTPT staff on salary structures. That's my big report from SACID. 99 Education Foundation?
We are working on Pizza Wars, which will be March 1st, so put that down on your calendars. And we sent out a letter to alumni and community members who have donated to us before to donate to the foundation. And we have a person in District 99 that's going to be helping us, and so that's been a huge plus. So we're moving in a very good direction. So we're very pleased with that.
I got one of those letters from your board president.
Yes, from Julia.
Yes.
Yes.
And
a familiar face.
Yes, and I wasn't aware that she had stepped up for that. So
Yes.
that's really great.
Yes, she is our new board president. So we are very pleased. We are positive. And if anyone would like to join the foundation and help us raise money for any student activities, that would be great.
Okay, Mike, did you have anything to add about
Nothing further to add. There's been plenty of report out.
And I would just mention that there are 2 upcoming board meetings. December 4th, there will be a special meeting workshop at 7 p.m. at South High School in the cafetorium.
Correct.
Okay. And December 18th will be the regular business meeting here at the Administrative Service Center. So with that, we are going to, what?
I just wanted to say 2 quick things. I did the Young Hearts for Life at both North and South High. What a great bunch of students. Ed and I don't think Janice is here, but.
Janice is at a conference tonight.
Oh, okay, all right. But the students were outstanding, and we did 3,400 students between the 2 schools. What a great event, and everything was very nice. And then I also went to the Memorial Day, or not Memorial
Veterans
Day.
Day.
Veterans Day.
Veterans Day, I'm sorry.
Yep.
activities
North.
at North, and what a moving experience. I
terrific.
would recommend everybody take the opportunity to go to their presentation and meeting those veterans. There were 101 of them, all the way from World War II up.
They've reached such a number that they have to kind of alternate.
And now they're going to alternate between the two different
styles
kinds
of
Yeah.
presentations, yeah.
Yes, because there's so many vets
Incredible.
that come, and just, it's just.
Means a lot to the vets.
Yeah,
They
yeah.
really express their appreciation.
I know that it's open to the public, but do we really publicize
I
it?
believe it is, but.
No, I know it is,
But I'm not sure it's that well publicized, because I don't think there was a seat in the House left, just looking around. I mean, they were all taken.
Yeah.
And each veteran gets a student to go around with them, and it's just fabulous.
And the video of that's available online, so.
Is it?
If
Okay.
anybody wasn't able to attend and wants to see how awesome that ceremony is, you can go
Yeah.
online and see it.
And the veteran was from '06 that spoke, so, a relevant young man, so,
He was a graduate from '06?
yes, yeah.
And we have events at South as well, and I
Yes,
visited
and
some of
I'm
those.
sorry I
Both Pete
didn't
and
know.
I stopped by. I just want to make sure that everybody knows,
Not just North.
South has events as well, and
I'm
had a
sorry, I
good
didn't get
presence.
to go to
and
that.
And we did visit, Pete and I know many other administrators stopped in and visited on those events as well.
It's really wonderful what our students and staff do. Appreciate our vets.
So, thank you.
Nancy, do we need a new motion read out to go
Yes.
back?
Go back into closed motion.
Is it okay if I make that motion now? Okay, so I move we go to closed session for the appointment, employment, compensation, discipline, performance, or dismissal of specific employees of the district or legal counsel for the district, including hearing testimony on a complaint lodged against an employee or against legal counsel for the district to determine its validity.
And there will be no action coming out of closed session.
That's right.
And we need a vote.
Second.
Sherrill.
Sherrill.
Mike Davenport.
Aye.
Sherrill Fuller.
Aye.
Dan Nicholas.
Aye.
Terry Pavasich.
Aye.
Rick Pavanato.
Aye.
Don Renner.
Aye.
Nancy Kupka.
Aye. We are going into closed session. Thank you very much.